Welcome to How To Retail. I'm Greg Harford from Retail NZ and I'm delighted to be here today with Ivana Tranchini for Visa New Zealand and South Pacific. Today we're going to be talking about loyalty programs and a new report that Visa has commissioned into looking at how loyalty programs make us tick as consumers. Ivana, tell me about the Humble Loyalty Program. Almost all of us belong to one or more programs here in New Zealand, so what is it about them that we really love?
Look, it's a great question, and we asked ourselves the same question, Greg. And that's why we decided to investigate this topic a little bit more. So we interviewed a bunch of experts in the loyalty space, as well as 1,500 New Zealand consumers, to really understand what motivates them to join a loyalty program and how businesses can create true loyalists out of their customers. So we released a report called Inspire Your Customers: Earning the Loyalty of the Modern Day New Zealand Consumer.
So this is a really interesting area to do research, given the digitisation of retail these days and the way that that's changing customer experience. What are the key findings from the research? What are the learnings from it?
Yeah, so like you said earlier, what we found was from our research that 97% of Kiwis are actually participating in a loyalty program. And of that, if we break that down into different segments, we had over 80% are participating in a grocery style program, again over 80% in a consumer retail goods and services program, 77% are participating in a loyalty program for fuel, and about 65% in an airline loyalty program. And so whilst consumers are part of all of these different programs, the really interesting point was when we actually dug a little bit deeper into how consumers feel about these programs, whether they love them and whether they were going out of their way to participate, the numbers were very, very different. So for example, in the fuel space where you had 77% participating in a fuel program, only 40% said they actually loved the program, and even less, 36%, felt that they would actually go out of their way to choose that retailer and be part of that loyalty program.
So why should businesses care about affinity and engagement?
Well, affinity and engagement tell us how consumers feel and think about a loyalty program. So affinity is whether they see they have a real love for the program, and again, engagement is whether they would go out of their way. So whether they would drive that extra 5 kilometres down the road to be able to, use that particular retailer and be part of their loyalty program or earn those particular types of points. And again, it's that disparity between, the participation and whether they're actually wanting to get the benefit out of that program.
Why do you think there is that sense of disconnect then?
When we looked into this a little bit more deeply, there was one really key dynamic that stood out. And the dynamic is around where loyalty programs are today and where actually consumers are expecting them to be today. So as it stands today, a lot of programs are what we call, earn and burn. And what that means is that the programs allow you to earn lots of points, and then over a period of months, or in some cases years, you use those points to buy something like a toaster. So they're really kind of long-term experiences for consumers. Where consumers actually, we're seeing them want to be, is really in that instant gratification space. So they want to be able to get rewarded in the moment at the point of purchase. So for example, I'm buying a pair of shoes and I get 10% off at the point of purchase, or I get a percentage cash back, or potentially I get a freebie like a new pair of laces or something.
So really, you're saying that loyalty programs need to evolve into much more of a model focused on instant gratification because that's what customers are looking for?
Absolutely. There's really a shift that needs to take place to bring in a shift to create more brand affinity, and to do that using these new technologies that are available to us. A really good example of that is gamification.
So gamification sounds a bit scary. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Is gamification a digital approach that New Zealand firms should be looking at to adopt for their loyalty programs?
Absolutely. I think gamification is kind of what it says on the tin. It's just making a game out of something that is generally pretty mundane. So, for example, I could be walking into my local cafe and I buy a coffee through my mobile app and it's connected to my loyalty program. At that point of purchase, I then get a pop-up saying, would I like to try and win a free coffee next time I come in? And it surfaces a digital scratchy. And that kind of experience that gives me the option to win a coffee next time I come in is a really great way to engage a consumer and keep them coming back in a really low touch way.
So that sounds like a really great example of what we might call digital first retailing.
Absolutely. Just like businesses had to move their whole operations online over the last couple of years during COVID, loyalty programs are no different. They really need to move into the digital first space as well.
What other digital tools do you think Kiwi businesses could be looking at to attract and retain loyal customers?
When we did our research, there was quite a bit that came out around the role of digital first and convenience in how businesses engage their customers. And if we think a little bit more broadly about engagement, creating truly loyal customers, there's some really interesting tools and examples from other sectors like the banking sector. Over the last few years, obviously, banks have had to move a lot of their advice and support that they provide to customers from in-branch to online. And so tools like chatbots or using data to provide really personalised offers or offerings of advice is really where businesses need to also be thinking. So in addition to kind of those traditional loyalty programs that are, functionally on your mobile, I think there's a lot to be done in the data space as well. When we think about engagement, it's really about creating an emotional connection with your customer and making them feel valued, like you know them, and that you're giving them something that they value personally is really important.
Essentially what we're seeing are that even though loyalty programs are an important part of driving customer affinity, they don't necessarily have a proportional impact on how customers view a brand. And if that's the case, how do brands go about fostering that sense of connectivity and connection with their customers?
Yeah, when we did our research, it was really interesting to find that 80% of the respondents said that they join the loyalty programs of brands that they like and use already, whereas only 20% said that they would use a brand because of the loyalty program. So you're absolutely right that having a really strong product and service that's digital first, where relevant, and supporting customers through to what they need through personalised offers is really very important in designing your overall engagement experience. But in saying that, loyalty programs are still really, really important. It's just about how they're delivered.
So Ivana, in a nutshell, how do we summarise the key outtakes of the report? What are the key learnings that retailers should be thinking about?
Yeah, look, I think there's three things that I would hope that everyone can take away from the research that we've done to help them evolve their businesses. The first is, when you're thinking about your loyalty programs, really think about how you're providing an instant reward to your customers and really in the moment and in real time. The second would be absolutely digital first. I think everyone knows that and they've probably heard that more often than not these days, but it really is the key to engaging your customers and gives you a lot more flexibility and choice in how you engage your customers. And thirdly, I would really encourage people to think about the personalisation that they can bring to those programs and making their customers feel like they know them. And there's lots of ways that digital can help do that, as well as data and different ways that you use the information you have on your customers.
So really all brands out there should be taking note of the findings of this report. There's some really interesting insights in there. Thank you for sharing those with us today, Ivana. I really appreciate that, and I know our viewers will too. So if you are looking for a copy of the report, you can get it from the Visa website, visa.co.nz. Thank you very much for joining us.